Hey, there we are, live with Brian on getting psyched up for your life. So today I want to talk about your success GPS. In your car, what does your GPS do for you? It tells you where to go, right? Gives you directions and it tells you exactly where you're headed so that you know that you're going to end up at the right destination. Most of us are so reliant on our GPS in our car. Do you remember that we used to? I mean, I'm old, but we used to have paper maps, and I used to have to plan out, what's my all my turns and everything before I get there. I had a map at my house where I would look it up if I was going someplace new. Now you just get in your car, program your destination into Google Maps or whatever, get directions, and you completely rely on that GPS to get you there. So, what is your success GPS? What is the thing that will guarantee you reach your destination for your success, for your goals? So that's goals, plans, and schedule. That is your success GPS. Your goals starts with your goals, then your plans, and then your schedule. Okay, now if I talk about, sometimes I talk about the 6 steps to financial freedom. Okay, and your goals, plans, and schedule. Good morning, Doris. You're already chiming in already. Lucky. Good morning. So, guys, when you are doing your success GPS, your goals, your plans, and your schedule, that's part of the entire 6 steps to financial freedom. So, what are the 6 steps? It starts with desire. All success begins with desire. You got to want something. You got to want a goal, and then you got to want it bad. And especially if it's not an easy goal. If you want to go out to lunch if you want to go out to lunch to a restaurant, and that's your goal, that's not too hard of a goal. You'll probably be able to get that goal done. But if you want to make $100,000 or more in real estate in 1 year, however strategies you're using, that's a significant goal. Okay, so now what do we need to reach that goal? We need a plan. There's steps. It's not something you're going to be able to do with 2 steps without figuring it out. So you have your goal and you set your goal. And I want everybody making at least 6 figures in their real estate business every year. Okay. And that is, obviously I lean towards doing creative financing deals and putting lease purchase tenant buyers into them and collecting big non-refundable option deposits. So if you did 10 deals, if you did even like 5 deals in a year and you collected an average of, I like to, if your houses are about 100 to 150,000, which is a really good price range, or up to 200,000, that's a really good cash flowing price range. You should be getting about 15,000 down per property. So you could almost do it if you did basically 7 properties. You could do 100,000 in pure profit, because when people give you a non-refundable option deposit to move into your property, they get an option and they get a lease. And remember, they get a 12-month option. If they don't exercise the option, it just goes month to month tenant. But you've collected this big 10 or 15,000, so you could actually hit 100,000, 6 figures, if you did 7 cash flow deals, creative financing, pretty house deals, and just collected good non-refundable option deposits. Okay, so I want you guys to have that goal for your 2026 of at least 100,000 in your real estate business. If not, and I like it when you set a minimum and an optimum goal. So your minimum goal would be 100, but your optimum goal, 250, 500,000, depending on what strategies you're doing and how much and what markets you're working, you get different margins, but definitely 100,000. Okay. Now here's the thing about your success GPS, the goals part. People tend to focus just on the financial goals. Okay, there is a lot of different goals, and so that's the thing. When you do your success GPS, that's goals, and then whatever your goal is, you're going to make some kind of a plan to reach that goal, and then you're going to give it a schedule. You're going to say, okay, this plan, to execute this plan, it's going to take me blank hours per week. Okay, and normally I think you guys can do incredibly well in real estate in 5 hours a week. You don't have to do more than 5 hours a week unless you get real busy and it becomes a full-time thing. Usually you can run a part-time real estate business in 5 hours a week, because it's amazing. You only have to do 1 deal a month and you're going to do great. So how many people do you have to talk to in the whole month to get one seller to say yes? I usually try to set you guys what we call a key performance indicator of talking to 20 people a week, 20 phone calls a week. So that would be 80 in a month. Not all of those are going to be to pretty house sellers, but at least 10 a week should be. So what does that mean? That means 40 calls a week should be to somebody who might sell you a pretty house with seller financing, or they might sell it to you with lender funding or something, but it's going to be a good cash flow type property. Okay, so that's that. If you talk to 40 pretty house sellers in a month, 10 a week, that means you only have to have a conversion ratio or a win rate of 2.5% to get one deal a month. Okay, so now that's your plan. That's more of your plan. So your goal is to make 100,000 at least in real estate. Your plan is to talk to 20 people a week. That is one of the key steps, one of the what we call key performance indicators in your plan, is to talk to, not make 20 calls and leave messages, but actually physically talk to 20 people. And some of those will be an attorney or something else, your printer or something like that, if you want to count those calls. But mainly you're talking to sellers. And then when you get a house for sale, you're going to be talking to a whole bunch of buyers. Okay, so that's your goals. Now, the thing about your goals, though, is don't just stick with your financial goals, not just, 100,000, I want to make 100,000. This is where your bucket list and your vision board come in. What are you going to do with that money? What are you going to do with that money that gets you really excited? How are you going to give back? What are you going to do? Could you give like a special donation to your church or special charity that would make a big impact? What do your kids need? What do you need to do? Do you need a new car? I mean, as simple as that. Or do you want to move into a new home, or do you need a home? Do you not own your home? Guys, there was a really good quote by this billionaire hedge fund manager, and he said the best investment is own a home. If you own one home, go buy another home. If you own two homes, go buy a third home. He's got the right idea. Keep buying homes, okay? And if you own 20 rental properties, remember, that's the end. You win. If you own 20 rental properties averaging $500 a month positive cash flow, that's $10,000 passive income every month. So you pretty much have achieved financial freedom with that plan. And you don't have to have 100 houses. You got to have 20 good ones, 20 good cash flowers. Okay, so that's part of your plan too. So that could be a goal. I want to own 20 rental properties, but that's not a goal you're going to achieve necessarily in 1 year. That could be a 2-year goal, because if you buy one house a month, you're going to make it. Okay, you would buy 20 in the next 2 years. But even if you want to say, I'll give myself between 2 years and 4 years to buy 20 properties, but that's going to be my focus. And guys, that's the thing about wholesales and flips. When you're doing those deals, they're nice and they're a paycheck, but then you got to start all over. You're not building this portfolio that you can live off of passively for the rest of your life. And that's the great thing about these, creative financing, pretty house cash flow deals that we love. All right, so make your goals and then make your bucket list and your vision board. Are you going to take the whole family to Disney World? I have a really good picture of a family at Disney World that is on my vision board. But what else are you going to do? Great vacations. Where are you going to go on your next vacation? Do you have pictures of it in your vision board? And you don't have to be an art student to do this. Just open up, left click on your desktop, open up a file folder, call it vision board, and just start putting some cool pictures in there. This is the car I want to drive. This is the house, the kind of house I want to live in, and get it off of Zillow. Get some cool pictures in there. Look at it once in a while. That's grist for the mill. That gives you, what you're doing is you're creating a blueprint for your future. Write that down, guys. A vision board and a bucket list is a blueprint for your future. It tells you where you're going. Okay, but if you don't have that, how do you imagine your future 5 years from now? If I say, picture yourself 5 years from now. Now, if I say that to you, I want you to say, oh yeah, I got a vision board and I got all these images and I'm going to do this and I'm going to be here and I'm going to have all this. That's great. But if I say to you, can you picture yourself in 5 years? And you go, okay, let me think about that. Where am I going to be in 5 years? And it's like a new concept to you. That shows you haven't been doing your visualization, which everybody should be doing visualization 3 times a day, imagining where they're going to be in 5 years and savoring it and making it real, feeling it. That's how you use the law of attraction to draw you to success, draw success to you. Okay, so that's your goals. Then your plans obviously is just a glorified to-do list. But your plans are all laid out in the what to say and what to do system. In the what to do system, it's your step-by-step checklist. Now, in your what to do system, and guys, go back to this if you have not looked at this lately, there's a 30-day plan. We call it the Quick Start Daily Plan. And it's 30 days, and it tells you exactly what to do every day for the first 30 days in the business. And if you have, and maybe you have missed some of those steps and you didn't even realize it. So go back to your what to do manual and read over that the Quick Start Daily Plan that covers your first 30 days. Then after that, what checklists and lists should you be following to know what the action steps are? You should be following the step-by-step checklist for the deals. There's 7 kinds of deals. So there's 7 step-by-step checklists, one for each deal, because every deal is different. A flip is very different than a seller financing deal. So make sure you know those. A seller financing deal has 36 steps. Again, all this is in your what to do manual and in your forms folder in your what to say and what to do. And if you have your code, you can go right on the OurWolfPack.com website. It's called Our Wolfpack with 2 F's. And you go on there, and that's where all your information is. You put your code in there, and you can access everything and download it and whatever. Okay, so that's your goals, plans, and then coming down to your schedule, guys. What's your schedule? 5 hours a week at least. And if you can do time on Saturday, it's awesome. Saturday is like double time. People are more willing to talk to you. A ton of real estate happens on Saturday. Saturday is when you want to be active. So if you can just work 2 hours every Saturday, and everybody in the family knows mom or dad, from 10 a.m. to noon on Saturday, they're in the office. So don't bug them. But then, you can do anything you want all afternoon. It doesn't wreck your Saturday, but 2 or 3 hours on a Saturday can practically make your whole business. Because so much stuff happens. And a lot of times you can say, hey, why don't I just come right over? If you're talking to a local seller, hey, why don't I come right over and look at the house right now? And then you print up your purchase and sale agreement. You go over there, you might buy a house, within a couple hours of first talking to the seller. Okay, so that's your success GPS, your goals, your plans, and your schedule that we've been going over. Okay, and I know a lot of you guys have been chiming in here. Doris, blessed Friday. Good job getting on even before I open the festivities. Great Friday. Be blessed. Yes. Happy Friday, Mr. Brian. Yes. Happy Friday, Isabel. Always great. Lacey, I haven't seen you a little bit, dear. Great to see you. Hi, Brian and everybody. Just had a great call with Paul Ritter about helping a tenant buyer apply and eventually purchase a rental on a home I have listed. I love working with him and Diane. Guys, and Paul Ritter, he has those companies. And Isabel, if you want to put this in, it's screenthetenant.com. So when you are doing a tenant buyer and you are, you're renting out one of your places, putting a tenant buyer in there, you will have them fill out this application form, and then you'll turn it into Paul Ritter, and then he will do a background check and tell you it's going to take him this long to get qualified. And then he has another company called mycreditteam.com that then will help them fix their credit to get qualified. Now, remember, on most lease purchase, we're not going to push them through the credit process, the credit repair process, because we like it when it takes them quite a while and they take their sweet time to get through the process. However, if I only have 2 years from a seller, if I have a pending balloon payment, then we get them right over to Paul Ritter, and we might even pay for the credit repair and start it right when they move in. So it's a couple different strategies there, but Paul Ritter's the guy with this mycreditteam.com and screenthetenant.com, which kind of go hand in hand. Okay. Lucky, any tips for selling a house? I got 2023 house, sweetheart, 29 years. Okay. Wow. Is that ever good? Well, now you guys know that we actually created a whole system called the 1 hour sale. Sometimes I call it the 1 hour home selling machine, because it's really a process, and it's got a lot of steps. It's got very specific steps to it. Now there's 3 ways to sell a home. There's private showings, self showings, and 1 hour open houses. So write this down when you're selling your houses. And Isabel, you might be in the middle of this too here. So what the first way, a self showing, if the property is at a distance, if you're not, and sometimes, we own properties in 5 different states, and so we can't be there and show them. Now, if you can be there and show them. You're going to take calls from buyers, and then you're going to pre-screen the buyers, and you're going to figure out what kind of buyer it is. Anybody with 10 grand or more, you should do a private showing. You should say, hey, I'll meet you out at the house. How far are you from the house? I could be there in 20 minutes. You know, oh, you're right by the house. Okay, just wait there and I'll be there in 20 minutes. Okay. And so, yes, I want you to do a private showing. Don't do a self showing if the person looks like a winner. It looks like maybe you're Huckleberry, because you're going to be able to control the showing a lot better and guide them through it. Now, what we do if it were at a distance and someone calls and they look great, they got 20,000 down, what I'll do is I'll do a phone house tour. It's kind of a mix between, sometimes I say there's 4 ways to sell a house, because it's private showing, self-showing, 1 hour open house. And then this phone house tour is sort of like a virtual, you're doing a virtual tour with the customer. And that's when they call and you say, yes, this one's a good one. They got 15,000 down. You say, go to the house. When you get there, call me and I'll give you the lockbox code. And then they call you when they get there, you give them the lockbox code, and then you say, hey, why don't I just stay on the phone with you? In fact, why don't you put me on video chat and I'll just kind of walk through the house with you and kind of point out the good features. That's a way that you can control the showing. You can hit the highlights and push the features of the property without being there. Okay. Now, if you are there, if the house is local, then get out there and give the house tour and show them all the beautiful features and do what we call tie downs. What's a tie down? A tie down is when you relate a feature of the home to that buyer's personal life. Okay. So if that is fireplace, you go, oh, you got 2 little kids. Oh, won't it be nice to have the Christmas tree right here by the fireplace for the little kids? Oh, there's a pool. Oh, won't you have a big pool party? You've got the 2 kids, you know, they'll have all their friends over, you know, it'll be so nice. So you're making it real for them. You're helping them visualize it and see it. Okay. So that's what tie downs are. So if you're there, whether you're there or doing a phone house tour or whether you're with them, you do tie downs to help them. That's a good tip on helping sell your houses. If you are sending everybody out there on a self-showing, and especially the qualified ones, you're taking a big gamble because they're just wandering through and they're thinking whatever they're thinking and you're not in control. So that's why I want you to be, you know, in there and part of it and controlling that showing, being there. Okay, so again, those are the ways that you're going to show self-showing again. If you can't, now what if someone, if you have a 1 hour open house coming, then I want you to push everybody to the 1 hour open house on Saturday. We do those from 2 to 3 o'clock on Saturdays, and it is 1 hour. And in Zillow, we say 1 hour open house party, 2 to 3 on Saturday, cash prizes, TV, toys and games for the kids. And then we just get everybody there and it's crazy. Maybe you guys have seen some videos of this, but it's our famous 1 hour open house. And we did one townhouse where we had 151 people go through in an hour. And so we get some pretty insane numbers on those, but how many people do you really need to come? About 3 or 4, because you just need that competition. You just need, you know, to build the urgency. So we like to do 1 hour open houses, especially it builds your buyers list. It gets you well known in the community. I can teach about this obviously forever. We got a whole system on it. So if you want the system, that system actually teaches you how to sell your houses. It says it's the 1 hour home selling machine, but I also get really into self showings, private showings, showings at a distance, and the whole process of selling your houses. That's a really powerful system. I can't teach that all here in the morning, but I gave you some good tips here, guys, for selling your houses and some of the different strategies. But every house you have should be on a lockbox, especially if they're at a distance. And the goal here is you're advertising bad credit okay, so that should get you a huge response. It says bad credit okay right in your ad, and you say great rent to own home, bad credit okay, and then you hit all the features, you know, of course, in there. And so that should get you a big response. And then it's just a matter of pre-screening out to find the ones that have 10 grand or more, at least 10 grand or more. I don't want you putting people in your houses and getting less than 10 grand, okay? So that's good about Paul. So those are some good tips on selling houses. And guys, if you bought a house that you are buying and it was mortgaged in 2023, there's a good chance you have a lower rate when, you know, the rates shift. So for a while there, the rates were lower and then they went up. So if you get the right years, there were some pretty low rates that you can take over. Thank you, Isabel. Goal plan schedule. The Success GPS. Yes, for everybody. Okay, it's your first one. You don't have an experience. Did 4 wholesales, but never a pretty house. Okay. Well, yeah. And so those are the 3 strategies. Get it on a lockbox if it's vacant. Now, sometimes we will show properties even when the seller's in there, but then we only do private showings. We never let them go do a self showing unless it's in another state and I have an awesome seller who I really trust. But that's really iffy. It's rare. Normally, guys, we're doing self showings on a vacant house with a lockbox. If they only have $5,000, but otherwise we're pushing everybody to the 1 hour open house. If somebody calls and says, what's the most, and I say, what's the most you can put down? Remember, there's 5 questions. Here's the 5 questions, guys, for pre-screening lease purchase tenant buyers. Number 1 is, when are you looking to move in? And obviously, if the house is vacant now, you want them to say right away. Who will be living in the home with you? Remember, it's always home with buyers. It's house or property with sellers. It's home with buyers. That's neuro-linguistic programming. So who will be living in the home with you? Because you want to get a lay of the land. What's the situation? Is it an elderly couple? Is it a family? What is it? Number 3 is the most important question. What's the most you can put down on your beautiful new home? Remember, it's like they're putting it down. This is a down payment. Once they get qualified, the whole thing is a down payment. Now, initially, it's just a deposit. And if they move out, you keep the deposit. Okay, but it's what we call it a down payment as well, obviously. What's the most you can put down on your beautiful new home? Then number 4 is what's the most you can pay per month? And obviously you want them to be able to cover whatever your payment is plus $500. That's the goal, $500 a month spread per house. And then the last question is, do you know what your qualifying issues are? And so when you ask them that, especially if you have short-term seller financing, if you have a balloon payment in 2 years, you better know that you can get them qualified in 2 years. But normally if you have sweetheart seller financing, you also want to know this because like this deal here that Lucky has where he's got 29 years of seller financing. What am I looking for? Why do I ask that question? Do you know what your qualifying issues are? Because I want them to say they're horrible. I'm right in the middle of a bankruptcy. I have 2 foreclosures on my record, whatever. I want them to usually, as long as they have a good job and I'm confident, they're not going to flake out on me and they can cover the payment. Then they give me a big whopping down payment to cover my assets. Then I'm okay. All right. And so that's but you do want to ask that question, whether you have long-term seller financing or short-term, because it's going to tip you off on the right kind of buyer. Guys, we've put buyers. I had one buyer with $50,000 down, but she told me that she knew she could get qualified real quickly. And she thought that's what I wanted to hear. She said, oh, I'm going to be qualified in the first year. No problem. Don't worry about it. I'm already talking to a mortgage company and all this. And I'm going, beep, 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 back up. That's not what I want to hear, but she thought it was. So we actually picked someone who only had 15,000, but it was, a woman moving in with her mom and her kid, and it was the right person. Okay. So that's great. I can give you more, Lucky, on that. So remember, we have a whole system on selling houses called the 1 hour home selling system that I would give you a screaming deal on if you want it. But that would help you sell any of your houses and get a lot more down. Okay, GPS, yay, Lacey. I remember the live video when one of our Wolfpack members turned your success training into the GPS. Oh, yeah, that's right. That is great. Okay, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Charles, blueprint for yes, and guys, that's what your vision board and bucket list are. Blueprint for your future, and sometimes your immediate future and your long-term future as well. Mr. Brian, thank you for the vision board. We'll do it today. Awesome. And that's right. I need to go back to that 30-day list. Yes, and kick it back into gear for 2026. That's a good refresher. Remember, Isabel's talking about in the what to do manual, that's all the steps for success. The way to succeed is stick to the steps, stick to the scripts, and stick to your schedule. So pick 5 hours. Make sure you're working during those 5 hours. You're doing the steps in the what to do manual. That's what to do. And you're reading the scripts from the what to say manual. That's all your scripts. Okay, so it's not complicated if you just stick to the plan. Okay, can I email you my 2 rent-to-own listings? Yeah, guys, you can email me stuff. do you know my email? I think you guys probably know my email, but you just go to wolfcouple@gmail.com. And then it's good if you are sending me something. This is an email that a lot of people get, access to. So sometimes emails get lost or go into spam or whatever, you know how it is. So if you do send me something, if you want to make sure that I see it, text me at this number. Okay. All right. So I just put in there both things here. And of course, good stuff. Thank you. And yes, myprequalteam.com. What's great is he also is a mortgage broker, right? We're talking about Paul Ritter again then. He's also a mortgage broker, so he can work with you guys on all your buyers and stuff. Are on self-guided tours with tenant buyer calls. Okay, now this is interesting. You've got it on self-guided tours. So that would be a self-showing. Obviously, they're showing themselves the home. And a number tenant buyer calls to set up an appointment, and then the call qualifies them, requires photo of driver's license before releasing lockbox code. Okay, now if you can automate the system and you trust that, and you don't have the time to babysit this part of the business. Now, and this is a big question. How do you take buyer calls? How do you process buyer calls? I'm glad that you brought this up, Isabel, because some people want to automate the whole process, and they just, sometimes people just let them all go to their voicemail and then they just call them all back. Sometimes people use an answering service, so they'll pay extra to have an answering service picking up these calls and reading the script. Remember, this is not a long or involved script. There is a script. So if you go into our what to say system, guys, if you're selling your houses and they're pretty, print like 30 pretty house buyer opening call scripts. Okay, that's what it's called. So go into the forms folder and print pretty house buyer opening calls. Okay, and it's a form, it's a one-page form. It's got those 5 questions in there. Now, could you wing it if you just knew the 5 questions? Yeah, but there's a lot more good stuff in that script that builds rapport and other things. So use the pretty house buyer opening call script and just print a whole stack when you get a house ready to sell. And that's what you read when they call in asking about the house. But remember, those 5 questions are in there, which are: when do you want to move? Who will be living in the home with you? What's the most you can put down on your beautiful new home? What's the most you can pay per month? And do you know what your qualifying issues are? Those are the main things that you got to know. And once you know those things, you're good. But I also want you to build rapport and get to know the customer along the way as well. But now, do you automate that process? Well, if you have the time, guys, and it's a really great house and you think you're going to get 15 or 20 grand down, remember, this is kind of a crucial moment in the deal. However, you can get swamped with buyer calls. You will, when you put bad credit okay, if you put it out there on Zillow and a lot of places, you might get 50 calls. And if you just don't want to deal with that many calls, you can get some kind of a process set up. But I will tell you that there is some breakage. Excuse me. Excuse me. I'm still here. Okay. Sorry. I got to start sneezing. So there's some breakage. So sometimes people will call if it goes into some kind of an automated system. Some people do not have patience with that, and they will blow it off and hang up. Now, obviously the buyers are pretty eager. And so, it's not a huge amount. Oh, okay. So it's not the kind of breakage that you get on sellers, but you're going to lose some will fall through the cracks. So, and usually I always worry it's the ones with the big money. The ones who have 20 grand down are the ones who aren't going to have patience to do the automation and go through the system. This is all totally up to you guys. And that's the thing about your business. This is your small business. You're going to decide how you want to systemize it and run it. And if you are getting plenty of buyer calls, plenty to pick from, it will certainly make your life easier if you've got some kind of an automated process, as long as it delivers, enough quality buyers. Now, there are a lot of people who are much more micromanagers who want to actually take those calls and talk to the buyers. And, remember, you can pretty quickly get to the answer to number three. I mean, if you just, usually we say, hi, how you doing? Okay, so I can help you with that. Let me ask you a couple of questions before I send you out to the house. First off, when do you want to move in? Secondly, who will be living in the home with you? Okay, great. And what's the most you can put down on your beautiful new home? And right there, if they say, well, I've got like enough for a security deposit, right there, that person's not going to be the winner. Okay. You don't blow them off, but basically the call doesn't go much farther than that. So it's not like you're spending 20 minutes on the phone call to get to the pre-screening point that if you want to go forward or not. So that's why I tend to, if you have somebody that can take your calls, an assistant or something, we invested in that pretty early on. So I like that human touch as well, but I believe in automation a lot. And especially if you're a one person deal and you have your other job and you can't really take a bunch of buyer calls, then an automated system might be the best way to go for you. Okay. So that's what Isabel is talking about: self-guided tours and the tenant buyer calls to set up the appointment. The call qualifies them and then gives them the lockbox code. So that's a very automated system if it actually ends up giving them the lockbox code at the end, if it gets the right answers. So that's pretty cool. Isabel, what software are you using on that? But yeah, that's interesting. So guys, I want you to boy, we talked about a lot today, kind of all different things. Let's see, what else do we have? Okay, so yeah, remember I got my number in here. By the way, that deal was brought by a realtor and she asked only 2,500. Okay, guys, I love that. Remember, we have that whole system called Realtor Riches. Everybody should be working the realtor market and letting realtors in your market know, hey, I do creative financing deals. Bring them to me and I'll get you a quick commission. I'll pay your commission up front. Okay, that's the phone number to text to. Okay, so refreshing. Yes, don't forget you got that 30-day quick start daily plan. Oh, Pat Live is a good answering service. So sometimes people will set up Pat Live with their buyers and not their sellers. And sometimes they'll set up Pat Live to take both their sellers and buyer calls. But Pat Live is good on buyer calls. Remember, that's, Pat Live, the name makes it sound like they pick up live, but they don't necessarily. Sometimes when calls go in there, it picks up and it's a recorded message that says someone will be with you shortly. So just be aware of that. But definitely, is any other than Pat Live? We actually use a local place that we use from before we even knew about Pat Live. So we've been using them a long, long time. So, but they only do local. Okay, thank you. You bet, Charles. Great to see you. Bless you too. Look at the sun, it'll make your sneeze. Okay, thank you for the sneezing advice. I put a lot of bandit signs, rent to own, and got bombarded with calls. My Pat Live bill was $800. Okay, now that's another point. You may end up spending more money on just taking all these crazy buyer calls. The two ways that we get the most buyer response is social media, including our Zillow ad. You get a big response on your Zillow ad. I'm sort of consider that kind of social media, kind of. And then the other thing is roadside signs. Just, great rent to own home, bad credit okay, and the phone number, and that's it. And so, yes, so signs if you put the signs around the neighborhood where the house is, you get people who are interested in that area, and you may get a lot of calls. And you just want enough so that you can cherry pick somebody really good with 15 or 20 grand down. That's the whole goal, right? Okay, Smith. Okay, this is one. Smith at Virtual Receptionists. Widely ranked as the best overall alternative to Pat Live, earning very strong user ratings. Okay, for call quality, responsiveness, professionalism, and team expertise. This is a ChatGPT answer. Okay, all right, guys, there you go. That's why it's good to be on these, guys. We're always networking and giving each other advice and tips, and always be open to asking questions on things you need. Okay, I'm still at an epic fail level for social media. Okay, that's good. Yes. And guys, the two that I really want you on is LinkedIn. Make sure you're on LinkedIn and then make sure you're on Facebook. And when you're on Facebook, then you can join Facebook groups. And Facebook groups are a great source for leads, especially join landlord Facebook groups. And you start talking to other landlords, and sometimes you can make deals on houses with them. They've got more houses than they want anymore. You can build relationships with people. And also, when you're talking to wholesalers and flippers, you should be asking them for their turn downs, because they don't do the creative financing. They don't do that side of the business. And a lot of their turn downs are your perfect kind of deals. People who want full price or closer to full price, and the house is in better condition. It's not distressed. So that's exactly what you're looking for. So sometimes you make good connections with wholesalers or flippers in these Facebook groups. You can join Facebook groups like that and ask them, hey, what are you doing with your turn downs? Okay. And guys, we pay, if it's a good wholesaler, we'll pay $5,000 for a referral that we end up buying. Make sure you're ending up buying it. Okay. So that's good. Signs work, but better to answer yourself and save the money if you're on a budget. Yes. Because remember, yeah, you can run up a huge PATLI bill just picking up the phone on, questionable. Most of the buyers that call you, are they going to have 10,000 or 15,000? No, most of them are not. So, I mean, you're looking for the few, not the many. And however you get to the few, that's that pre-screening process that, that Isabel's talking about automating with the computer, or using Pat Live. But is that the best way? Pat Live takes, as a big bill. It pre-screens out people and gets you information, but you got a huge bill. Now remember, you should be getting $10,000 or $15,000 down from this person shortly, so you can spend a little bit of money on the marketing and doing a 1-hour open house and those type of things. All right. Awesome. Yes. Still haven't worked out my business name. Okay. Current business LLC is completely dark. Need a good DBA. Do we have a chat in the Wolfbook Facebook page? Okay. Business names or ideas. That's a good one. Okay. So what should you name your real estate business? Here's what I want you to do for sure. Whatever you name your real estate investing business, it should have one of these 3 words in the name, in the LLC name: homes, properties, or real estate. Okay, because that way we know what you are. And remember, when you buy a property from somebody who has a mortgage and you do seller financing, you're going to send this special lender letter to the lender that says all future correspondence should be sent to this company. And that's going to have the name of your company. And so that name should look like it could be a management company, because what that letter says is this new management company is taking over the property. All future correspondence goes to them. And so that's why I want to have it. If you're going for kind of a warmer feeling, Homes is good, like Heartland Homes LLC. If you're going for properties is a little bit more professional. It sounds like a property management company. So Pinnacle Properties or Paramount Properties or something like that, that sounds credible. Okay. And then, or real estate, Regal Real Estate Management. You could even put the word management on it if you want, but, and you don't always have to use the word management, but if you want to put it on your LLC, you can do that too. It's up to you, but those are some suggestions on names. Now, the first word, pick a word that sounds as credible as you can. Like I said, Paramount Properties. That sounds like somebody who's been around a while. Now, that might be available in your state. Who knows? Remember, each LLC is state specific. So you might find some cool name. What I want, just brainstorm about 10 different names, but make sure that every name has properties, homes, or real estate in it. And then think of a really good first word that sounds credible and strong and is not taken on already. And well, how you get an LLC is you go on the state's corporate commission website, your state's corporate commission website, and there's usually a place where it says, what do you want to name your LLC? And you type it in there and they tell you pretty much instantly whether that name's available or not. So go on your state's LLC site if you haven't formed your LLC yet. And that's a lot of advice on that. Okay. But so that's my advice on picking a name there. It's a numbers game. Yes. Great info. Yeah, we had a lot of things today came up. Outbound Property Solutions. which is patronizing and newbie presumptuous. You know, people, for some reason, a lot of people went for this property solutions or solutions, putting solutions in their name. And I was never too crazy about solutions because it's acting like, oh, you've got a problem. You know, it's assuming that you have a problem, and I'm coming in like the great white hero going to save you from your problem. I have your solution. So that's why I tended to not go with that. But I know a lot of people have that in their name is solutions. You don't even, you could go without solutions. You could just change the word solutions. Outbound. But what is outbound? That's a little, I don't understand what the word outbound. Yeah, I don't like that name a lot. I like the word property in there, but outbound, I'm not crazy about that because it doesn't make sense. And solutions, what do I have to be an outbound person, like leaving to sell to you? It's just a little confusing. So yes, you need, now guys, you don't have to go set up a new LLC. You do a DBA at the bank. The only reason that you need to change your name is because people are going to write a check to you in that other name, and you might have problems cashing it in at your bank. But so long as you do a doing business as DBA with your bank and fill that out, then they will let you cash checks, even if it's in this other name that is just a working name that isn't what your LLC is named. Okay, so you can pick any old name you want and just put it on a form on the DBA, give it to your bank, and you should be okay without forming a new LLC. There's something to be said for forming a new LLC. Mostly they're pretty cheap. Mostly they're like $50. I can have an LLC in 5 minutes for $50 where I live. So yeah, so that's good. Okay. Home Pro. I like home actually. Home outbound is okay. Okay. I get it. Solutions. Yes. And Lucky Ann. Sounds too corporate. Lucky it says about solutions. Okay. And a DBA, right? So we just talked about that. M&M Legacy Properties. M&M Legacy Properties. You guys like that? What do you guys think? M&M Legacy Properties. I'm not sure about the word legacy. I'm trying to think if that's, because we want to sound super professional, like a whole business team, a chairman of the board with a whole bunch of board members came up with this name. Okay. So that's why it has to almost sound not corporate, but as credible as you can make it. And M&M Legacy Properties, it sounds like that's a personal investor who's thinking about leaving a lot of properties to their kids as a legacy. But there might be another way to take that. I actually like that name because it has properties in it. I'm going back and forth on the word legacy right now. And guys, now, do people see your name? When do people actually see your name? When does your name even come into play? Usually it's not even, it might be on your website, okay, but they're not going to see your website before they call and talk to you probably. You're going to give them your website name. So if you have a cool sounding name, now what's your website with that, Lacey? Literally, guys, is it m&mlegacyproperties.com, or what's the website that's attached to your name? Think about that too. And before you do an LLC, go on GoDaddy or whatever and type the whole thing in. Now, it's great if it's kind of short. Heartlandhomes.com is great. What if heartlandhomes.com is not available? You can put heartlandhomesllc.com. Okay, so you can try that, but I do want you to be able to get your whatever name you pick as an LLC. I do want you to get that name or something like it as your website name, so people can go on your website, obviously, and see your credibility there. So, but I would be curious, yeah, Lacey, what your website name is tied to that. Now, some people will have their website completely different. It'll be we buy houses in Michigan.com or something. It'll be completely different from their name. I would recommend to have your name, if you want to do that, if you want to have a marketing phrase, you can have more than one URL pointing at one website. So I would have them both go to that website. Okay. So I would do, it would say, My Legacy Properties or whatever, plus, but we buy houses all over town.com. and both names would go, and you would put whatever sounds better on your card. Okay. Remember, your business card needs the best LLC where it's easy to remember. Okay. Where would be a good place to get an LLC operating agreement? If you are doing an LLC shared with a partner, if you're doing something like that, I would want you to get an operating agreement. That's important. Okay. But if it's just you running your own LLC, operating agreements are a little bit overrated. It depends on what you're doing. Do you really need an operating agreement? You know what you're doing. And there's nobody else that's suing you or anything, and your operating agreement doesn't matter in that anyway. So all I want you to do, you could go on ChatGPT or just do a search for operating LLC real estate investing company operating agreements, find something. And now we do have an operating agreement. I've never given it away to anybody. It's something that we've used when we've teamed up with people or had partners. Let me think about that. I paid a lot of money for that. But I think, like I said, I don't even think you really need an operating agreement. Once you have your LLC set up, that gives you the legal protection. It's more, what you should be more concerned about is, how are you holding properties? How are you taking ownership of the properties? I know a lot of people like to do them in land trusts, which I'm okay with. If land trusts are accepted in your state and common in your state, ask a local title rep if a lot of real estate investors buy using land trusts in this area. And if they do, then land trusts are fine. But if they're really rare in your area, you look a little weird if you start using a bunch of land trusts. The other option is just to use an LLC. If you have series LLCs in your state, I want you to have each series LLC has its own house. So it's one egg, one basket, okay? And then you only have to file one tax return for the parent LLC. Other than that, my best advice for holding properties is setting up holding LLCs in New Mexico. New Mexico is the best state, not Delaware, Wyoming, or Nevada. Those are not as good as New Mexico. And you can use Northwest Registered Agents. So go on Northwest Registered Agents website and look out how to set up a website, or how to set up a LLC in New Mexico. And then that will be on the deed. The deed of the house will actually have your LLC name from New Mexico, will be the owner of that property. Okay. All right. Yes, I know we've got a lot of discussion here about stuff, and this is good. This is great, guys. I love giving you the answers here. Write the check. MM Legacy Properties. Okay, that's good. That's actually pretty good. I like that. So mmlegacyproperties.com. Yeah, that's pretty good. LaceyBuysHouses.com website. Do you have LaceyBuysHouses.com? That's pretty good. LaceyBuysHouses.com is pretty good. But see, here's the thing: you can only put one website on your card. So what are you going to put on your business card? If you've got a good marketing website like Lacey, see, that's the marketing website, LaceyBuysHouses.com. The other one, M&M Legacy Properties, that's more for your business, for business reasons. On your card, I would probably put LaceyBuysHouses.com. I think that's a really good marketing name. If you can get your name and then buyshouses.com, most people can't get that, so if you actually got that, that's pretty good. I mean, I would probably be using that, LaceyBuysHouses.com, on your business card, and I would have, obviously, that is your website. Now you can also aim mmlegacyproperties.com. If people put that in, that also goes to the same website. So you don't have to don't build two different websites. You want to have just one good website. That's okay. Great. Prices are down here, so not a good time to sell properties. Okay, that's interesting. Where are you? What city, what state are you in? Okay, if property now, values have gone down a little bit in some areas, largely due to the interest rates going up. But remember, interest rates look like they're coming down a little bit. So it could be, watch your home values carefully, because it could be that they bounce back quickly here if rates go down. If rates drop another percent, if rates go down under 5%, the market's just going to get electrified here this spring, and the prices will go up. So actually, this is the time to buy, not necessarily the time to sell, in your specific area. Okay. But remember, when you are putting a lease purchase tenant buyer in there, you're not selling it to them. They've got an option to buy in the first 12 months, but there's no way they're going to get qualified in time. And so, they're not going to buy it for quite a while. A lot of times they won't buy it ever. And sometimes they won't buy it for 10 years. Okay. So it's going to be a whole different market then. So putting a lease purchase tenant buyer in there, obviously the number that you put on it for a purchase price, that's not going to end up being the ending purchase price. Okay. Short version. Yeah. Sounds solid. Yes. Okay. Isabel buys houses. Doesn't work. What do you mean doesn't work? Have you tried to see if that's available? Temple Terrace, Florida. All right. So yeah, and guys, just be aware of what your market is, and don't sell right now. I would rather you hold properties anyway. Here's the only reason to sell, guys, if you don't have a cash flow. I mean, if the thing is negative cash flowing and you don't think that it's going to improve soon, that's when to think about selling for cash. But you better have equity in it, or it's not going to be worth it either. So again, sometimes you buy these properties, you pay close to full price, and you want to hang on to them for a long, long time. That's obviously the best strategy, and that's the goal. So much info on the internet, and many people have their very similar strategies. How not to get lost in it? Yeah, how to get not lost in it is well, and this is, you got to trust somebody. I mean, you guys can trust me. I really do have the best training materials. If you guys need training materials to get better at anything, I've been doing this like 25 years, and I'm a system created machine, and I'll give you any system we have now for really cheap. So if you guys need information about this business, and you know what, we are doing some very minimal mentoring. If you guys want to do something with that, we would be open to doing something with that. I want to make sure you guys have the right guidance, and it does get confusing out there because there's so many voices. That's what I'm forwarding my MM Legacy properties to. Okay, yeah, Lacey buys houses. Excellent. Good job, Lacey. You're already set up right. Sounds silly. Okay. I overthink every word. Yeah, overthinking. That's a big challenge. Well, that's awesome, Lucky. I'm glad to hear that. This is not wasting our time. This is really good instruction. Guys, if you have a question, oftentimes, and you're kind of nervous to ask it, other people have that question so often. Awesome. So guys, don't forget the deal after the deal. Yeah, never forget, whenever you negotiate a deal, especially if the seller only gives you a short time period, like a 2-year or 3-year balloon, you're going to go back and you're going to renegotiate that 18 months before your seller financing expires. That's how we have it set up in our system. 18 months before any seller financing expires, we get notified, and that's when we call our buyer and seller and see what's going on and see if the buyer still wants it and see if the seller will give us an extension. Okay. And then listen, what if we still owe the seller? Oh, I could get really into this. The deal after the deal is if you still owe them money, okay, then you go back and you say, no, I owe you, according to our initial agreement, I owe you, $50,000 or whatever it is. I came into some money recently. If we could settle it and I could get you a check within the next 24 or 48 hours, what's the least you would settle for? Is that the best you can do? So sometimes, guys, we will do something called super seller financing. And the way we do that is, let's say the house is they want 170,000, but they only owe 150 on the mortgage. What do you do? Okay, so they want 170. That's the best price they'll give you. but they owe 150 on the mortgage. So what do? How do you negotiate that 20,000? You say, so the way this usually works is we'll pay you that after we cash out. That's it. That's the whole pitch. So the way this usually works is we'll pay you that when we cash out. Okay. You understand that, right? Okay. So the way this usually works is we'll pay you that when we cash out. You understand that, right? And so that's the whole pitch. And then now that's floating along. We still owe them that 30,000 or 40,000 if they say yes to that. And then that's when we come back when we're closing, when our buyer has gotten qualified and they're ready to close. That's when we call the seller back and say, hey, that's when you try to get a discount, basically. Now, if that seller really needs that money and they've been counting on that money, sometimes we don't go after them. It depends on our relationship. Sometimes we're making a lot of money in these deals, and sometimes I'm not going to put the screws to somebody at the end and try to get a few grand more. But sometimes, if they're making a lot of money and it's some lawyer or something, I don't have any qualms about it. I will definitely try to negotiate down the deal after the deal and have some kind of a discount off of what we owe them before we pay them off in full. Okay, lots of training today. Wow. When I set up an LLC, the and can't be in the domain. Right. So that's why the domain name. That's why I'm good with MM domain. Yeah, with that M&M. All right, so lots of great training, guys. Our affirmation for today is, where did we start today? What were we talking about at the beginning? We were talking about goals, plans, and schedule. Okay, so I follow my GPS. Let's say that. I follow my success GPS. Let's say that. Okay, this is our affirmation for today. 3 times on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I follow my success GPS. I follow my success GPS. I follow my success GPS. Yes, that's your goals, plans, and schedule. All right, 3 deep breaths, everybody. Nice deep breath. Hold it a little bit and then let it out. What a great session today. Another one. A lot of great training. So take advantage. Remember, knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. So use all these great tips we're giving you. One more. Hold it a little bit and let it go. Awesome. Great job, everybody. Great comments today. And so let's have an awesome weekend and be open about asking me questions, guys. I love helping you guys with anything that you need along the way. Thanks for your time today. And everyone, love this community. Isn't that awesome, Isabel? Oh, you got a great deal on a duplex. Said yes to terms. I love duplexes. Wow. Oh, wow. What's the next step? Lacey, yes, you can send me an email on this if you need some help on this. But and it says yes to terms, asking 135. That's probably going to be really a good cash flower. Okay, the next step is what? Guys, what's the next step after they essentially agree on the phone? Is get a piece of paper in front of them to sign, get that purchase and sales agreement filled out with all 4 terms in there and get it in front of them. If they're within driving distance, drive over there. Now, remember, the things that you want to have them sign at that first meeting is the purchase and sales agreement, the authorization to release information, if they have a mortgage on it, you're going to send this letter to the mortgage company. So it's called the lender change of address letter. And then the seller congratulations letter. Now, those have to be adjusted. The seller congratulations letter says, congratulations, you have sold your house at. You got to write in the address there. You got to type it in there and then say, this is awesome. And remember, that's really important for your stick campaign, is to leave them that congratulations letter. Okay, so this is great. I love a duplex. Now, this isn't close to you. So if they say, now guys, if it's at a distance, what do? The next step is if they know you're at a distance, I want you to get a phone house tour. I want them to give you a tour of the property. So you're going to if you have boots on the ground, you'll have your boots on the ground, meet them at the house. But if you don't have boots on the ground, you're going to tell them, I buy a lot of houses virtually, obviously. And so I'm going to just have you go over to the house. Let's meet at 2:00 on FaceTime or Zoom or however you do it on video chat. And I'm going to have you walk me through the house, and I'm going to take notes, and I might ask you to zoom in on a couple of things at like the roof and stuff like that. But basically, guys, remember, these houses are pretty. We're not going through some distressed house where you're going to have to be taking all these notes on all this stuff that needs to be fixed. Hopefully nothing basically needs to be fixed. So, these houses might be in perfect condition. So, but they can walk through, show you the house. And then what are you going to do? You're either going to email them the paperwork after you type it out and fill it out and send it to them, or you're going to actually FedEx it or overnight it. And you can even overnight it to a local notary. And that local notary will bring the paperwork out. Now, normally we just send it to them, and then we do a phone call with them and tell them where to sign while we're talking to them on a video chat. Okay, so or we have our boots on the ground person there sitting with them while we're on video chat, either one way or the other. But they're filling out that paperwork. They get the email, they print it off, and they fill it out and sign it. Okay, so that's how we do it. So that's what you're in the middle of there, Lacey. So the next point is get it to the paperwork. Anytime someone says yes, as fast as you can, fill out the purchase and sales agreement and get it over and get it in front of them so they can sign it, because that's when you got a real deal. Okay. Thanks for your time. Yes. And $850 to $900 a month, 2 units. Okay. But the term you never said. Okay. Well, assume that they're giving you 30 years. You want to find out what their mortgage, if they have a mortgage on it, it's good to know what their mortgage payment is and how long their term is, because that's what you're going for, the rest of the mortgage term. And you just tell them, guys, so the way this usually works is we'll be just making that payment for you until the mortgage is paid off. That's one of the most important lines in this whole business, guys. The way this usually works is we'll cover that payment for you until the mortgage is paid off. You understand that, right? And if they say yes, you just got sweetheart seller financing for the whole rest of the mortgage with no balloon payment. That's perfect. Okay. So that's what you say. Now, guys, if there is no mortgage on the house, how do you figure out how long you would have it for? What you say is, a lot of our sellers give us 30 years. They love getting that monthly payment. And then stop and see what they say and see if they freak out or not. And if they don't freak out, then just say, so that's how we'll write it up. And so this way, we'll start sending you the payment, and it's in the scripts. But basically, you're testing them and seeing if 30 years is going to freak them out. If it doesn't, then it's 30 years. Okay, and that's on free and clear houses. On houses with the mortgage, it's a different thing. Okay, so that's important. Great. All right, see you, Charles. Awesome. 75 years old. He's okay. Free and clear house. Okay, so that's where you got to figure out. Yeah, and if you already got the payment and it's free and clear, then you don't have to deal with a mortgage company. So that's the approach. Is you've already got the payment worked out. Between $850 and $900. I would write it up for $850. I would go ahead and write up the deal. And I would say our payment is, this is on 2B. Remember, you write how much seller financing they're giving you under 1E, and then you write what your monthly payment, how you're paying it back under 2B. All right, so this would be under 2B, I would put $850 per month, and I would type it in there because he said $850 to $9. That to me is $850. All right, and then obviously you're going to have some good cash flow. So that sounds really good, but get that contract typed up and over there. If they're at a distance, send it by email, as like today. Don't hesitate and get that over to them typed up. All right. I think this is the longest one we've ever had. Okay, but awesome. I like actually really a lot what Isabel said here. Thanks for your time, and everyone love this community. Awesome, guys. So until I talk to you on Monday and you can ask me more questions, keep expecting success. That's my motto. Expect success. Keep taking action. That's Lynette's motto. Take action, and keep getting great training right here with the Wolves.